Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. I'm Jon Najarian. Pete Najarian will be joining me. Jared's handling all the technical duties. And we've got quite a show for you today. We've got two separate unusual activities that could have made you hundreds of percent returns. We've also got a very exciting election special coming up that will tell you about a free webinar you don't want to miss. Bang!
There she blows. Here we go. It's the last one of the week, John. This is in a wild week we've had.
I know we got to jump right in, but I just wanted folks to know that I'm flying the Cardone colors because he's joining you and me tonight. We'll get to that in a little bit, but he's joining us tonight. It'll be pretty cool. Meanwhile, Pete's flying the Tom Brady colors, I guess. Which I can't blame you for, Pete. I know you've always been a Raider in your heart, and I love that Brady's part of that team. I mean, I really do. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Macro Minute, folks. Macro Minute, consumer spending appears strong despite tight credit conditions. Personal income rose by just 0.3% in September, while personal consumption expenditures increased more. What does that mean in plain English? We're not making as much money, but we're spending more money. Again, I think putting on more debt is not a good thing, but it's what we have to do because when you're talking about food and housing, that's all going up. And unfortunately, Pete, that's part of the macro right now.
Yeah, I'll throw you out a macro, which is just that the earnings cycle is so influential on the markets, more so than it's ever been, John. And the moves that we're seeing today is a great example of that. Look over at the NASDAQ, down 2.25%. Why is it down so much? Well, because some of those very big market cap names are getting absolutely thrown out with the bad bathwater right now. I mean, it's getting pretty brutal as far as the moves that we are seeing and some of the selling we're seeing. But I think that combination of earnings and you start looking around and you start saying to yourself, well, how about PCE? Well, PCE numbers came in. They're interesting to look at as well. And it's something that we've talked about time and time again, but this is something that we know the Fed is looking at. And oh, by the way, the Fed's going to be talking to us right after the election.
Yep, they are, Pete. And by the way, we've got a lot of things that we need to talk about as far as futures. Before we dive into futures, we got to hit our Hard Assets Alliance pals, Hard Assets Plural Alliance. Folks, what they do is they provide, there it is, Pete and I say this is one of the best ways to invest in gold and silver. Yes, there are other ways, but I defy you to go to another numismatic or to another gold and silver dealer and find a better deal where you've got 10 different dealers bidding and offering prices for gold and silver. That's what they do. They basically take your order to buy or sell at a price or to buy it at the market, if that's what you will. And they ask for bids and offers from 10 different dealers. I think you get a better price when you get competitive bidding. That's the way it works. And competitive offers, of course, since many of you, most of us, are buying when we're reaching out to a gold and silver dealer. Well, these guys have $3.8 billion worth of sales already. They've got Brinks vaults all over the world that you can avail yourself of. So make sure you check out Hard Assets Alliance, and you can just scan that QR code right there and dive right in. All right, Pete, it's kind of a risk-off day all the way across the board. I've got crude oil, one of the few commodities that's moving to the upside. Gold, it's down almost 2% today. Silver, down over 3.7% today. 10-year bond, well, it's holding up to 4.29. So, wow, we don't have a lot other than risk off right now, Pete.
Mm-hmm. No, you're exactly right. And you hit all the different bullet points there. The one thing I'll add to that is my favorite topic, the VIX. And John, we talked about it yesterday. It got up there for 30 minutes. Wow, or 10 minutes actually yesterday, 30 minutes the day before, over 20. Well, it actually did close over 20. Towards the end of the day, it made a little bit of a move. And today, we're pushing right up there, John. We got over 23. We were at 23.40, I think was the high for today. Then it kind of eased back just a little bit. But nonetheless, we're somewhere between, call it 22.50 and 23.50. And it might start getting a little bit sticky because we're getting all these earnings that we were just talking about, the sell-off that we were also talking about. And I think when we look over at volatility, people are getting a little bit nervous and a little bit more nervous. And why is that? Well, we do have the election coming as well. And that is just days away at this point in time. So I'm not shocked by any means. And as a matter of fact, I was a little bit more shocked that we didn't sustain over 20 a little bit longer as we got into this week. But obviously today we're seeing a lot of that. It's been over 20 all day, and call it between 21 and a little over 23. It's a very, very interesting thing to see where we're trading right now with the VIX. And it could go even a lot higher, John.
It could. Uncertainty is one of the things that's a great barometer for, that and risk. So keep an eye on it, folks. VIX, just like Pete does. All right, Estee Lauder, Pete. Like I said into the macro minute, people are spending more money to get less, unfortunately. And in the case of Estee Lauder put out some earnings, Pete, that were 14 cents a share. That's better than the 9 cents that was expected. Quarterly sales, 3.36 billion. That was down 4%. That missed consensus. And a lot of their products, people are just not able to buy as much of those products right now. And that's because of inflation. The manufacturers are charging, Estee Lauder is charging more for those products. And so that's not all bad when you've got puts. So for instance, yesterday or just recently, we had massive put buying in Estee Lauder, Pete. When you take a look, this was last week, they were buying the 87 puts, were bought for 98 cents. Stock trades down hard today. Well, that's on the earnings as well as all the rest. What I'll emphasize for people is, sadly, the timing of that particular buyer was not great, because those options that they bought, yeah, they made a little money on that trade, Pete, as Estee Lauder traded down, but not like the big money they would have made if they held it into the earnings. But those options expired prior to this.
Yeah. Well, when you look at these numbers, John, you talked about it. You said the earnings were strong, and they were. But the quarterly sales were down about 4%. That's not so great. The skin care and hair care both down 7% and 6%. That's not so good. And how about that full year outlook and the concerns that they've got about China, Asia? That's a big deal, because that is a place of growth. And we aren't necessarily seeing that kind of growth because of all of the uncertainties that are going on. So they also lowered the dividend in that by 47%. That's something you don't see very often at all, but they're having to do a lot of different things to cope. They hit a 52-week low today. There's a lot of reasons, John, why, even though they've gotten hit as much as they have, they hit the 52-week lows. I don't know necessarily, given what they're telling us about the markets themselves and how they're going to be struggling, at least as we're looking into the next year. Wow. I don't think this is a name that you're going to want to say, well, you know what? They got sold off too much. I want to get in. I'm not so sure that's the case. This is one where I'm okay if I miss it, because I think it's much more dangerous to the downside than the upside.
Well, what about Root, Pete? ROOT. Pete, unfortunately, folks, has had to deal with homeowners insurance and a lot of issues with that, as one of those many people who's been impacted by Hurricanes Helene as well as Milton. And these guys are an insurance company, Pete, but they're an insurance company that has stuck them hard. They're an insurance company that's up 147% today. Take a look at that. Oh, my. I mean, just an explosive move by Root. It's homeowners, it's car insurance, and the like. This basically took them to profit for the third quarter. So they finally turned profitable. It was such a strong quarter, Pete, that it even helped lift Lemonade, LMND, which is another insurance company that came public just in the last couple of years. And that one's up 28% on these fabulous earnings out of Root.
Root absolutely crushed it like I have never seen. And I say that as a guy who's had many names over the last couple of weeks during this earnings season, John, where I'm like, wow, that's a heck of a quarter. I can't find anything negative. Well, you want to not just find anything negative, everything is positive in Root. It's absolutely incredible what they were able to achieve, John. The profitability came way quicker than I think a lot of people were looking for. A year ago, they lost $3.16 a year ago. Well, this time they made $1.35. They were expected to lose 61 cents. I mean, everywhere you look in this report, you just say, wow, I'm scratching my head. The stock is up, year to date, it's only 270%, John. So it's not exactly a big one, but wait, this is a stock that moves like an option. I have not seen a stock move like this in I don't know how long. I really don't. I mean, I was going back in my mind thinking, well, how far back do I got to go to find an option even that moves to this degree? I mean, this is absolutely incredible. Average is about 260,000 shares trading a day. Well, last I looked in the first 90 minutes, they traded over 6 million. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of the turnover, the kind of excitement that's out there. The stock got all the way up to 118, a new 52-week high today. When you've got a range of $7 to 118, John, I'd say you're in for a stock that's got a heck of a lot of legs, wings, whatever you want to call it. But this is an absolute incredible quarter that they put up. Wow.
Yeah, I'd call it wings, just like Red Bull does.
Yeah.
Wings. It gives you wings. Oh my gosh. If you came in today and you had shares of this, which I did not, but if you came in and had this one today, you were you couldn't have wiped that smile off your face, Pete. All right. Speaking of wiping stuff off, how about Uber with the worst earnings they said in 3 years, Pete? But listen to the numbers here. They reported per share earnings of $1.20 a share, significantly above the 37 cents that they were supposed to. Revenue, well, $11.19 billion, beating the $10.99 billion that the street expected, and reflecting a 20% year-over-year increase. So why is the stock trading down so hard, Pete? Well, their bookings. The bookings were the worst in 3 years, Pete. And people got nervous that maybe this thing had peaked. And, because of the pandemic and Uber Eats and deliveries and all the rest, maybe that was as good as it got. So people started selling with both hands. It's down almost 11% right now.
This is one where I would watch this one very closely, John. I don't know that you jump today because it still has the wrath of everybody who's trying to sell it right now. But when you beat on your revenues by about 20% year over year, I'd say that's a damn good year. And if you beat on your earnings that were looking for 37 cents and you put up $1.20, I'd say that's a pretty decent beat right there. They did miss some of the expectations as far as the outlook. I get it. But this is a name that, given what they were able to put up here, John, I would watch this one very, very closely. And if it starts having any kind of unusual options activity coming into it or anything of that nature, I certainly would. It would grab my attention because this was an incredible quarter. Yeah, there's probably some headwinds in front of them, but those booking numbers are something that certainly we want to look at. But they put up some great numbers this go around, John. And I think that the outlook may be a little bit weak, but does it really justify the fact that they've slammed it as hard as they have today? I'm not sure it does.
Yeah, but somebody was buying puts in here, folks. I mean, we like to say somebody always knows. Now, sometimes or very frequently, that somebody is us because we follow that smart money. And as you see there, 8,000, that would be 800,000 share equivalent, 7,950 options, nearly 800,000 share equivalent of short positions that somebody wanted. Well, when they're buying that many, we had to jump in there. Well, take a look at where the stock is today. It ain't $80.44 anymore like it was the 17th of October. Now it's 72, and it's been under 70 today. So if you were in here trading that trade, Pete, I think you're pretty happy as well. Yeah. All right, let's hit Robinhood real quick. Don't need to belabor it. They're a very good broker, but their third quarter numbers, Pete, net revenue, $637 million, below consensus. Okay, so that's their revenue number. The adjusted earnings per share, were slightly under as well, and they are hurting this stock in a pretty big way right now.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised how hard they're hurting it right now, John, is to use your word. But year over year, the revenue was up 36%. So they missed on whatever numbers were out there. And that's always something that's going to stick in somebody's craw. But up 36% year over year, I don't know that that's so bad. When I'm looking at the revenue, it starts to get me a little excited. The net deposits, yeah, that missed in a big way. But the customer assets year to date are up 50%. I think there's a lot of reasons why you want to keep a very, very close eye on this name. It had a big run yesterday, got up and over that 28 number. I think it was another 52-week high for Robinhood. I believe it was. But this is a stock that I think could bounce back very, very rapidly. And we've had some options in there. Yes, they were wrong about it yesterday, but maybe there's still a little bit of time. And maybe, just maybe, the way it trades oftentimes, it trades with, for whatever reasons, John, it goes along with Bitcoin oftentimes. So this is a name that I think I'd really keep a very close eye on, because I don't know that the numbers were quite as bad as what people are interpreting them to be today.
Well, when you look, Pete, at a year-to-date number, they're up year-to-date, up, I think, like 110%, somewhere between 100 and 110%. That compares somewhat favorably to even stocks like NVIDIA. So NVIDIA's up more than that. It's up 169% for the year. But I'd say this is a pretty strong performance for a stock that is just a brokerage firm, really. A brokerage firm that doesn't even charge commissions. But they're doing some things right. And I think Pete's right. You buy it on weakness. Today's weakness might not be enough to get me excited, though. Right. All right, folks, we are doing an election special tonight. The guy right over there, whoops, that's Pete. He will be joining me and the one and only Grant Cardone and Mark Lopresti tonight. We will be doing the 2024 Election Trading Summit. We won't just be giving you trades for Donald Trump. We'll be giving you trades for Kamala Harris, too. We looked at the sectors. We also asked AI which ones are more Kamala-based, which ones are more Trump-based. We asked Forbes magazine, and we came up with sectors and stocks that we're going to specifically talk about on that webinar tonight. It is completely free. You just have to scan that QR code, and then you can attend at 4 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. And or if that's too early for you, or if you're working still, we can send you a copy of it, which we do routinely to everybody that registers. You will get a video copy of the webinar so you can go through it slide by slide, listen to the whole thing as often as you like. So you want to join us tonight? Sign up by scanning that QR code or typing in marketrebellion.com/register. All right, let's talk about the Lions, Pete. Don't need to give it a big build-up. This is a great segment on the Lions and how Dan Campbell has really turned that franchise around. Let's take a listen.
Are the Detroit Lions playing the best football at this point?
I mean, I think it's hard to argue that they're not.
They steal teams' hope right from
He's
the
doing a
beginning.
great job.
With the way they get off the bus, they're coming in to punch you right in the mouth. And they do it for 4 quarters. They beat you any way they want to. If you want to throw it, they've got explosiveness down the field. If they want to ground and pound, they can go do that. And they have the most efficient quarterback in the NFL right now. 3 incompletions, 12 of 15, 3 touchdowns. Jared Goff is playing as well, if not better, than anybody else in the league right now.
He's playing his best football. And I'll add this, JB, real quick. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, they are.
Just
They
straight
are
up
fun
and
to
down.
watch.
Listen, they'll hit you in between the tackles, old school football. But it seems like week in and week out, they're pulling a trick play out. And not only are they pulling it out, it's
David
working.
Montgomery was pretty nice with that pass.
Nice. They say once you hear the roar, it's too late. And it's too late for a lot of these teams to have this lead on the lines.
I love that, Pete. Once you hear the roar, it's too late.
It's a great comment. It really is. And that guy does an outstanding job. Former player. I think he's on like a Good Morning America type show or whatever it is. And he still does the sports shows. I mean, this guy, he kind of does it all. It's amazing how impressive he is. He does a great job. But John, before we get to that, let's just, we jumped away from it a little bit. And I did that on purpose because we wanted to see how it was playing out. And I'm talking about the World Series. So we look at the 2 franchises that are never afraid to spend a lot of money. And this year it worked. It doesn't always work. We sometimes get teams that actually have somewhere in the category of 100 million rather than 300 plus million. And this year it was those that were spending the money. And the Dodgers did an absolutely amazing job. They went out and got Ohtani. He didn't do as well in the World Series as he probably would have wanted to, but nonetheless, he's the reason they got there. Let's be honest. He and a lot of the other guys on the team. One of the stats that I saw, John, that I thought was really interesting, and the Dodgers won it last night for anybody who missed on that, but they played 29 different players for the Dodgers during October. 29 different players. I mean, imagine that. That's something that's pretty unusual, I would say, for baseball. It shows you a little bit of the depth, how good they do a good job of going out and finding the right players, the players that actually fit to what they want to do. And last night's game was the epitome of the entire season. They were so damn good. You can just almost feel it coming. And they made an unbelievable run. The way they were able to play the game was how they played the entire season and the postseason and got into the World Series run with it. They had a great run at home. They go out to New York and they just were fantastic. It was an amazing series, John, what they were able to do. That Freddie Freeman guy, I mean, how do you not like this guy? I mean,
Love him.
4 home runs, 13 RBIs. He ends up being the MVP. He does everything you'd ever want. And, you can't say enough about how good the Dodgers really looked. Even when they were down, they were not down. They didn't look like a team that was struggling. They looked like a team that said, all right, you punched us in the mouth. Now it's your turn. We're going to punch you in the mouth. Speaking of punching in the mouth. But did you get a chance to watch any of it, John? Because it was a damn good series, but a really great game last night.
It was, but it was a really tough one, Pete, for the Yanks because, Aaron Judge, I love him, and he ate Ohtani.
Yeah.
Because Ohtani can play the field. He can pitch. This is not the year when he's going to do that, of course, because of his shoulder injury and or elbow injury. But Aaron Judge had a rough night last night and had, I think, a ball bounce out of his glove or it hit his glove or whatever, Pete. It's not a great stage to make mistakes like that because everybody's watching. But he's a tremendous player. I'm sure the Yankees are both proud to get there and, going to be hungry for next year. So let's just see how they do in the offseason, what moves they might make. But as you said, the Dodgers made all the right moves in the offseason, picking up Ohtani and so forth.
Yep. Amazing. I mean, the guy set the record, obviously, with the stealing of bases and all the different things he just an amazing guy, and he didn't even pitch this year. Who knows? Maybe next year he pitches. I mean, it could be pretty interesting. All right, John, I thought we could do just sort of a rapid fire thing where we go through a couple of the NFL games, not the college games. College games are great, but there's really only one great game this week, which is Ohio State, Penn State. So that one's going to be pretty damn exciting. And I think, when you got 2 top 4 teams, you really got yourself a pretty damn good game. And that one should be pretty good. I don't even know which way I lean. I think Penn State's maybe a little overrated, undefeated, but who knows when it comes time to go up against Ohio State. But the NFL, we'll just run through these pretty quick. The Cowboys and the Falcons. Now, the Cowboys got problems, right? I mean, this is a 3-4 football team that spent a hell of a lot of money on a wide receiver, a hell of a lot of money on a quarterback, and they've got 3 wins so far out of 7 games. Not so great. That's a bit of a problem. And you know what? It's going to be interesting. The problem for Dallas, though, is their whole focus is offense. Their defense stinks. I mean, stinks with a capital S. They have not been able to stop anybody, John. What do you think happens in this one? Does Kirk Cousins start lighting them up? Because Kirk, for all the criticisms he used to take, that guy has put together an unbelievable resume, both with the Vikings and now down in Atlanta. It's just lighting it up for them, and they're getting opportunities.
Well, I'm going to say, Pete, it's a must-win for the Cowboys, but they're not going to do it. They're going to lose to Atlanta. Next.
Broncos, Ravens. Bo Nix. Everybody was flushing him down the toilet, right? He was the one guy. I caught flack from guys on Twitter and other places, John, because I was so high on him, and they said, well, you you don't really see it right. Well, let's see. He's had 8 touchdowns and 1 interception in the last 5 games. They're now a 5-3 football team going to Baltimore. And as good as Baltimore is, if the defense can even slow down the Ravens, Bo Nix might be able to light them up, because the defense for the Ravens is not the defense the Ravens have always had. Offense, off the charts. Defense, not that great. What about this one?
Well, Harbaugh is known for defense, and you're right. He ain't going to be happy with how that defense has played. That said, when you've got the king, the running back there, Pete, I don't think you can stop Henry. And they can ground and pound, as that analyst just said, talking about the Lions. They can ground and pound, so I'm going to give it to the Ravens. But I'd love to see a big game out of Nix as well.
And you brought up the Lions, and that was where I'm going next. The Lions are 6-1. They're playing the Packers, who are 6-2. This is going to be a heck of a game. Now, they both, I think, in a lot of ways. Now, Jordan Love, I don't think is as good as Goff. But Goff has been almost perfect. Nobody's been as good as Goff. Goff has had like 3 or 4 games in a row, John, where you look at him and he's like 2 incompletions, 3 incompletions. I mean, he's playing out of his mind because they can run the ball so well with the 2 running backs that they've got. And the Packers have a heck of a good running back as well, which is helping out Jordan Love. I still think that Detroit's the better team. I think that their defense does miss Hutchinson, but not so much that they're going to lose. I think they have a much better chance of winning. So I'm going to put my money with the Lions. What do you think about this one?
Up in Lambeau, that is a home field advantage, of course, but Lions win this one, even up there in Lambeau.
All right, the talk of the week. Here's the talk of the week is the Colts. Not the Vikings, the Colts. And why are they talking about it? Well, because they got a quarterback that they took last year, not this year, last year, Richardson, who during the game last week decided he came out, John, because he was tired. You know what the head coach decided to do?
Sit him down.
Well, just stay there on the bench. We're going to bring in a different quarterback. And Joe Flacco, 39-year-old Joe Flacco, is absolutely coming back like a champion and has done really, really well. Right now, John, in the couple of games he's played, he's got 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's got 65% completion. Richardson has 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 44% completion rate. And you and I talked about this. This guy was a high round pick. I mean, he was first rounder. I think he was number 4, somewhere close to that, wherever he was. Doesn't even matter. He was very high pick. And why? Because he could throw the ball a mile. He could run really fast, but nobody seemed to watch any of his tape where he was very average. Well, he's showing you how average he is in the NFL right now. And maybe his attitude needs a little bit of tweaking too when he comes off the field because he's tired. Are you kidding me? I think you've played when you were tired. I played when I was tired. Running backs for their team right now are playing when they're tired. This was a really, really weird thing. And I think the better quarterback for the Colts anyway is Flacco, because he's going to have to read that Viking defense the way Stafford did. If he can do that, he could light up the Vikings defense too, John. We'll have to see how it plays out, but I think Joe Flacco's the better coach or quarterback to be in there anyway.
Yeah, and you and I talked about Richardson, Pete. Nobody had him that high until he showed up at the combine, and he ran fast, jumped high, and was a big kid, strong arm and everything. He was all of that at Florida. But how many national championships or how many big games did Florida win? None. I mean, I like the kid, but I agree with you. I've never seen a leader step out when he's tired. And that's what the quarterback is, a leader. So hopefully that kid matures. But I'll tell you what, you give Flacco an inch, he'll take a mile. He's done it everywhere he's played. That's why he's got Super Bowl ring. And that's why he's almost taken the other teams that were also Rams that close into the playoffs to get to another Super Bowl. Not saying the Colts are that team, but I'm thinking the Vikings still win this game, Pete, but Flacco is somebody that I root for whenever I see him step on the field.
Yep. Great guy, great kid. I can call him a kid even though he's 39 years old because I'm old enough to be his father. But I'll tell you what, he's He's impressive as hell. He really is, because he's been the grinder the last 4 or 5 years. He's the guy who comes in and he's the mature, older guy. And when he gets on the field, he don't look that old. He looks pretty damn good. So I don't know, John. He might be able to get through the Vikings. I'm not so sure about it right now. They've had a couple of decent games that they've put up a lot of points. We'll see if they can do that against the Vikings. But Flacco's been the reason.
Yeah, it's Flacco, not Richardson. Well, folks, one last time, just make sure that you join us tonight. And if you can't join us live, again, if you register, we will send you a copy of tonight's webinar with the one and only Grant Cardone of Cardone Capital, of 10X Wealth, of 10X Health. The guy's got multiple billion-dollar companies that he's created or co-created. Make sure you check it out. It'll be tonight at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, if you can't make it live, we'll send you a copy. You just have to register. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll see you tonight, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Bang!